role do you believe universities should play in fostering entrepreneurial mindsets among students beyond just incubators and startups?
So, yeah, thanks, CIPU, for asking this question. I think this is really central to, I think, how universities and entrepreneurial mindsets need to be working closely together. So, first of all, I believe that entrepreneurship is no longer a career choice, it is a survival skill. Because whether you're at a small player or a big player, one is absolutely going to require an entrepreneurial mindset, specifically in the world of AI. Because what's happening is the ability to develop prototypes on good ideas has shrunk dramatically. So you can come up with an idea and develop a prototype for literally no cost in hours versus what used to take, at least a year. So the ability to build prototypes, test products, test value propositions has dramatically shrunk. And the only people who will survive, the students who will survive and thrive in this environment, are those who have an entrepreneurial mindset where they can go hunt for opportunities. They have a nose for finding opportunities. They have the aptitude to understand what the tool set to build such prototypes is going to look like, and then deliver on that. So I think, as I said, entrepreneurship is no longer a career choice. It's not like something I'm saying, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Even if people go to a big, large firm, they're going to be intrapreneurs, because this ability to model out, build prototypes, test out with markets, different ideas, different value propositions, that's going to be the key essence to survive. So that is, I think, one thing that's dramatically going to change in the world of AI. So now the question is, what can universities do? Right? So MIT, WPU in this case, what can we do? Or what can other universities do in fostering this sort of an entrepreneurial mindset? So I think the question is really good, because entrepreneurship is a mindset before it is a business plan. And that is very, very key to understand. We have to focus on developing mindset related skills versus focusing only on tools, which are things like the business plan. Right now, what happens is educational establishments primarily look at the business plan and the business operations part of the process. I think we are doing ourselves a disservice by not focusing on the mindset part of the process. So the question is, how do we develop, what are the aspects of the mindset that are important? So one, for example, is things like normalizing failure. In the world of AI, in the exponential growth that we are expecting, you need some sort of reflective assignments where people can fail and failure is celebrated. Even today, in the educational process at universities, failure, especially in India, I don't think people really understand what it means to celebrate failure. So look at it at one level in the US, where I'm located, I'm in New York, versus in India, right? Here, if I do a startup and I shut it down, it's a badge of honor that, Rahul, you tried a startup. Man, this is amazing. You ran it for 1 year. You raised capital. Yeah, it didn't go anywhere. But if it failed, but no, you grew, you learned, and you showed courage. That's why it's a badge of honor. In India, when I talk to kids or, even professionals, they never talk about their failures. They only talk about their successes. And I don't really care. The markets don't care about failure, successes. Success never teaches us anything. So it's only failure that teaches us stuff. So we have to have the ability where we are pushing kids, giving them assignments and celebrating their failure. He tried this. Amazing. It shut down, but this is what he learned, and that's why he's a success. Success is the failure, not the other way around. Right? So normalizing failure is number one. Secondly, is I feel the universities can really take an approach on systems thinking. We are very siloed in the educational establishment, especially in India. Right? So the engineers just work with the engineers. I mean, even the computer science guys are only in computer science. They don't even cross across disciplines. But at a larger level, we need technical skills, we need business skills, we need communication skills. So at least across those three, you need to have some sort of a systems thinking approach, which brings in these different ideas where people can think about how do you connect dots across disciplines, right? So I think that's another thing that we can focus on. The third thing we can focus on is uh, getting people to take problem ownership. So what do I mean by that? So kids and everybody should be able to identify and frame and solve real world issues. I think the university and the educational establishment definitely lacks the ability to identify, frame, and solve real world issues. We do things which are, archaic. I mean, in the world of exponential change, if I'm not using AI tools today to solve today's issues, I'm irrelevant, right? So taking that sort of problem ownership in the curricula for universities, I think that's really, really important. So all this, I think these three things, whether it's around normalizing failure, whether it's around systems thinking, promoting systems thinking, or including problem ownership, right? I think these three things, they don't only have to be focused on the starting part or the origin story of the entrepreneur. You want to give people an exposure to the what I call the ugly middle of entrepreneurship. Too many times people only celebrate the start. Oh, this guy's doing a startup, and the exit. Oh, this guy had a successful exit. The reality is the ugly middle. The ugly middle is what tests you, because that's where every day you have to get up, you have to drag yourself, you have to do things under great stress and under great resource constraint, right? And so the curricula also has to all these aspects, whether it's around normalizing failure, systems thinking, or including problem ownership, they have to be framed in a way so that it also gives exposure to what I call the ugly middle. So broadly, I think the universities can play a dramatic role in fostering this sort of an entrepreneurial mindset, and it'll be in students where you again go not just beyond the startup phase, not just at the exit, bringing in the ugly middle and doing it on these three fronts, which is first, we normalize failure. Second, we promote systems thinking. And thirdly, we include problem ownership in curricula, which is real world based.
As someone deeply embedded in the tech space, what skills do you think are non negotiable for graduates in the AI driven future of work?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I mean, I speak a lot on the AI-driven future of world environment. So, I was speaking at the Futures of Digital Finance conference in Miami. I was on stage with Morgan Stanley, with Google, with BCG. Um, I just gave a keynote in Lisbon, in Portugal. So we had over 250 CXOs from all over the world at one of the top business programs. Where I've been talking about the skills element. Um, and so I have a deep passion for what skills are non-negotiable. So first of all, you definitely need, I would say, AI literacy. Absolutely, that's a non-negotiable skill. So on AI literacy, what do I mean? I mean the ability to ask good questions and prompts, the ability to understand how these models work at a high level. You don't need to be a coder, right? But you need to understand how LLMs work, the different tools work. And thirdly, you need to have an understanding of the tools that are emerging that somebody could use. So for example, tools, everybody just talks about ChatGPT, and the world of AI is way beyond ChatGPT. ChatGPT is only good, from asking questions and getting some insights back. There are agents, there are tools like, I talk about Suno to create music. There's InVideo that creates video content. There's, there are tools like Lovable. There are tools like Replit, where you can actually build an entire app in minutes using just voice. So having that sort of a having that sort of AI literacy is important. So AI literacy from the element of prompts. How do you ask good prompts and prompt engineering, understanding how these models work, these large language models and other things. And thirdly, the landscape of tools that you could use. So I think that's number one. This is a hard skill. A second hard skill is being able to interpret data, and not just interpret data, but weave it into a story. I think the storytelling part is going to be key, because everybody is going to have the tools to do a lot of these things. But the ability to tell the story is going to be even more important. Like right now, I'm telling a story. If I'm not a captivating storyteller, then this question and this whole recording, everything's got to waste. Right? So that hard skill is absolutely required for somebody for graduates. You got to be able to tell a story with passion, with conviction, with an understanding. You need to connect with the data, so on and so forth. And thirdly, how do you design? So design thinking, right? Whether it's workflow design, whether it's designing these workflows using agents, using APIs, whatever it is. So I think broadly, these are hard skills. So prompt engineering, understanding these models. Yeah, the first one was like the hard skill around AI literacy, right? Tools, that's all AI literacy. Second is around this data interpretation and storytelling. And the third is around design thinking, especially around workflow. So I think those are the hard skills that graduates are actually absolutely going to require in the AI-driven future of work. But this is not sufficient, because beyond the hard skills, I think what's even more critical is soft skills. So soft skills meaning curiosity. Soft skills means ability to work together, frictionless working. A soft skill means adaptability, right? So curiosity, frictionless collaboration, adaptability. I think these are three soft skills which are incredibly important. And students don't seem to understand what these mean. So curiosity, for example, how a kid, every graduate should be reading things which they don't know. When I see something, I always look at it and say, do I know something about it? And if I don't, I read it. If I pick up something and say, does this interest me? Does this topic interest me? Actually, if I say no, if it does not interest me, I read it even more carefully. That is how you learn. You make the unknown the known. So curiosity is an outcome of your mindset. So that soft skill is really important. Frictionless collaboration, the second soft skill I talked about. It's not just going to be about humans and humans. Yeah, absolutely, you need to work together in teams, but the size of teams is going to go down. Things are going to be more single shingle. So the question is not just a frictionless collaboration between humans and humans. It's actually between humans and machines. Because using ChatGPT, I mean, how do you frictionlessly collaborate so that you understand that is this right? Is that wrong? How do I interrogate? Blah, blah, blah. There has to be a collaborative element there, which is frictionless. So I think that's the second soft skill. And adaptability. Adaptability is a core muscle now. It's not a side skill. And I'll give, I was speaking at MIT, and I think there was like 1,400 kids in the auditorium that day. And I went up and I asked somebody, I said, hey, what do you like? And what's your skill? And he said, oh, I'm a Java programmer, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, I want you to take the next 5 minutes and give me a pricing plan for bananas. And the guy just froze. Why? Because adaptability was not a core muscle. Everybody says they are adaptable. And you can tell right away who's adaptable or not. Because if he were adaptable and he had curiosity and he knew this knowledge, he would have right away said, oh, no problem, let me go to ChatGPT. That's where you start looking at solutions. You don't need to be perfect, but you need to have the mindset that you're going to learn faster than the environment changes. So I think these are the non-negotiable skills, both on the hard and the soft side. So on the hard side, just to reiterate, AI literacy is number one. Storytelling and data interpretation is number two. Design thinking is number three. And on the soft skill part, having curiosity, having the ability to frictionlessly collaborate, not just with humans, but also with machines. And thirdly, adaptability, having that as a core muscle. I think these are absolutely essential for the future. And your ability as students, your ability to learn faster than the environment changes, that is going to be your greatest edge. So invest in that.
How can higher education institutions better collaborate with early stage tech companies like yours to co create scalable and impactable solutions?
Higher institutions, especially in India, they don't really know how to work with these smaller firms and especially early stage tech companies. I think there is still too much of love for larger firms. And I genuinely am very concerned um, that love for larger firms and people's mindsets to get a good job, which means at a big place, it's going to lead to very bad outcomes in the long term. Because the environment is changing. These big firms are all going to be cutting people. They're all going to be shrinking. So you don't want to be in a situation and in an environment where, these big firms you know, are, are low morale places. So absolutely, I think these higher education institutions need to start pivoting to working and collaborating with early stage companies. And how do we do that? So some simple thoughts. So first of all, I love hackathons, and MIT having an engineering background, and so hackathons, and this kind of connects with some of my previous answers, right? Which is, or previous guidance, which is, you want problem first hackathons, not product first demos. It's really, really important mindset. Right now, when I walk the departments, everybody's doing product first demos. Oh, here's my hyperloop. That's a product first. So doing a lot of hackathons internally, which are problem first, where the hackathon is focused not on coming up with the best rocket, that's a product first, but the problem first, which is, hey, I need to come up with the best approach to go from A to B. Then if a rocket is a solution, that's one of the solution. But otherwise, it could be an electric taxi or car or whatever. Or it could be a balloon. See, when you're problem first, you open up lots of different product ideas. When you're product first, then it's like a hammer looking for a nail. So I think higher institutions can really set up these problem first hackathons. Secondly, I think an emphasis on research that allows these startups, allows new ideas to test hypotheses on real world populations. So even in a university space, whether we can create a research project to even test these things on real world student populations, so even at MIT WPU or someplace else, just focus on the student population, because that's where the future is going to lie. For example, if kids are struggling with obesity, let's test solutions. That should be the problem first approach. Okay, we got to solve obesity. Then you come up with 5 different ideas, which are products. But test these hypotheses on real world students. You can do this for anything, whether it's heart health, on the world of health, you can do things on the world of technology, creating content, whatever, right? So co-designing such research projects can really help institutions collaborate with early stage tech companies better. Thirdly, I think building sandboxes. So you really need these safe, secure zones for experimentation. So you need these tools, to give these tools to students, to startups, where you can do these things in a safe manner, in a secure manner, because you don't want IP leaking out. You don't want, contamination on the data, blah, 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 right? So there's having these sandboxes is going to be critical. So I think broadly, I think where higher education institutes can collaborate better, because with early stage tech companies, because you want it to be scalable, impactful, because all these things, when you're problem first, you create impact, you create scale. When you're allowing and co-designing these research projects to test hypotheses on real world population. Again, you're setting it up for scale, you're setting it up for impact. And thirdly, when you set these sandboxes, which are safe, secure zones for experimentation, you're absolutely creating the ability to scale and have an impactful solution. So those three things, in my way, can definitely help higher educational institutions better collaborate with early stage tech companies, because then I'm going to be interested as an early stage tech company. I mean, and even just having good people, just send me people. Like, I can give internships, I can bring them in, give them real world, real world experience. There isn't even a spot at such a simple level that I can't even post and say, hey, I'm ready to offer, with a US based cutting edge um, tech company. I'm willing to offer these sort of internships, and I don't even know where to reach, who to reach. None of that happens. So I think there is a huge gap right now that these higher educational institutions can bridge by doing these simple things.